Hi, I'm Josh, in case we haven't met. But I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how to adopt a continual improvement mindset for IT. One of my favorite things about DevOps, well, I got two main favorite things. I love that DevOps aligns really well with the business, because as IT, we usually haven't been very good at that. And I love this focus on continual improvement. Nothing's ever good enough. You always do just a little bit to make everything better. It doesn't have to be a big bang. It's constant, continual. And this led me to think, I was talking with my son, he's 9, about the concept of how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. But how do you catch a woolly mammoth, right? They were so huge, and they were a huge source of all the materials that people needed, our ancestors, thousands of years ago, needed in order to survive. Right? This was a huge shift for them. So how did they do it? So we talked about it. Well, they had to do a little bit at a time. They had to gradually get better and learn how to approach the woolly mammoth and how to ensnare it or get it. They applied new tools. They got bows and arrows and spears, and they would dig ditches and put big shafts of wood in, right? And they worked as a team, right? So these are really common concepts that they adapted then, that we're also having to adapt the same types of things today. And so when you make a case for continuous improvement, I look at 3 core things that you need to focus on. Your technology, right? What the business is looking for and what IT operations is trying to accomplish. So the technology is an easy one, right? It's a very involved one, because what we've done for the last 5 years is going to be vastly different than what we continue to try to do in the next 5 years. We're going to be asked and continue to be asked new things. I think someone just saw my single pane of glass point up there, because it doesn't exist, right? But we are going to start seeing things like AL and ML observability come to play. Like, these things are going to just show up in the products that we use and be asked. So the business comes in, and I'm a big fan of using Dilbert for learning. Scott Adams teaches so many things, right? But in this, our perspective often in operations is, why on earth are they asking for X? Why are they asking for Y? Okay? And it's up to us to really dive in and understand, like, what are those outcomes and objectives and how much we influence that. And then from an organization standpoint, I helped co-author a paper actually with Damon and Jane earlier this year. And in that, one of the big takeaways is that traditional IT operations teams have to evolve from being measured by mean time to resolution and mean time between failure. Right? It's really a transition to focus on how are you able to deliver services and capabilities that can allow the business to thrive while not sacrificing availability and reliability, resiliency, and of course cost effectiveness. So this is IT, right? We're firefighters, and we sit there and we're like, no, this is fine. We hate it. We're grudging about it. So how do we move past just being firefighters? Right? This is how we do IT. We're data-driven, so we just do anything that alerts. We're great that if it beeps, we will silence it. Right? But that is not how we have to move forward. So in an effort to continually improve, we have to look at how we react to situations and scenarios. We need to be more data-driven in that we look at data, we analyze data, we train our systems and people and how to respond to those types of incidents, and we have to apply new solutions or new tools or new ways of managing those incidents. And if it beeps twice, we missed something, right? That's what everyone's looking for. If you're having to redo things over and over again, that's ripe area for minimal continual improvement. And then, of course, automation being a big part of that. We have to be able to assume the unforeseen, right? We have to know and appreciate that there's going to be things that come up that we weren't expecting. 5 years ago, did you think that you would be concerned about containerized technology in your environment and the security implications or how you're going to manage it if you run a Windows environment? No. So you just got to get comfortable with that. Start spending time getting a little bit uncomfortable with what might be coming. Not saying chase all the shiny objects. I'll get to that in a minute. Keep in mind that successful organizations do not improve in silos. Just because the developers can develop the code faster does not mean they can deploy it faster, right? And just because we are able to get something to 6 nines does not mean that improvement actually helped the business, right? That just helped us cover our butts. So we need to start understanding that entire process. Because if we're not sure where we need to apply improvement, how do we apply improvement? So we need to learn the development pain points, right? They are our consumer, right? The developers and application owners. And most importantly, you optimize at the constraints. So many people have read the Phoenix Project, so many people forget that critical thing. Just because you optimize over here does not mean you've done any good. If the constraint sits in one spot and you optimize somewhere else, you might actually make things worse. And to keep in mind that developer productivity equals business productivity, which in turn equals IT productivity, right? So you want to focus on those constraints and make small improvements where you can at those constraints. So transparency, I like to have graphics on mine, so this is my transparency graphic. We are not good at being transparent, right? We like to hide behind our dashboards, hide behind our expertise, hide behind Virtual Center Server. How many of you give Virtual Center Server access to application developers, application owners? Nobody does. Why not? You can limit what they can do. If they can't see what's going on, they can't tell you what's broken for them, right? They're limited to the scope and the visibility of what you provide. Sharing is caring. We learned this in kindergarten. I try to teach my children this, but they get really antsy whenever I take their Halloween candy. But it's important for us to increase our visibility. So when we look at our tools, make sure we are delivering tools that we can reach out and let others in our organization see what's happening in the environment. They'll probably tell us a lot of stuff that we didn't know to help improve. Now, in order to accomplish a lot of this, like we can wake up in the morning and say we're going to be better IT operations people and we're going to do great things, but we're going to have to adopt new tools and technologies. Remember, they couldn't take down a mammoth without bows and arrows and spears. They used to do it, but they got easier when they got those technologies. All right? So, are you experienced? Generally, you want to be honest. Do you know what you need to know about containers? No. Well, there's resources out there, right? Gain a little bit of experience. You have resources within your organization. If you're in IT operations and you have applications that you support, which you do, if you have developers that work within the company, which you likely do, you can guarantee 100% they are all looking at containers, or the vendor that supports the application is going to start pushing them to containerized versions of that platform. You will be influenced by these, okay? So start becoming experienced. Now, these two guys just played for a lot of money, right? Do you think that they were prepared for that event in the last month, the last 6 months? They've continued to gain experience and improve themselves a little bit over time. Same with musicians, same with cooking, same with any passion or anything that we devote energy to. You don't become one of these people overnight. So you have to gain that proficiency over time. So look at the long road on that. That's why when I say mindset for continual improvement, that's what I mean. You've got to be mindful that this stuff takes time. So here's some mindset adjusters. First off, you cannot improve what you can't measure. So as you're identifying constraints and identifying the areas that you might need to improve, you have to determine, like measurement, that you actually improved it. Right? You really need to be able to improve or demonstrate that you improved it. Okay? It's very helpful. Find and use the right tools for the job. Okay? Don't assume that Virtual Center Server is going to continue to solve all your ills and woes. Don't try to solve every problem that needs to be solved with the exact same tools that you have. Analyze the tool or analyze the problems that you're trying to solve, and then look at which tools can solve it. Okay? Don't be the I'm a hammer, so everything's a nail type person. Right? You don't ever improve that way. Keep in mind, like I said before, that successful organizations don't do this in a silo. Right? As an SRE, you're not able to actually improve the reliability of the environment unless you're seeing things that are happening in the environment and communicating with people saying, what did you do? What were you trying to do? You know, as we were talking earlier about practicing interviews, the reason that she suggests, and I suggest also, that you practice interviews is because you don't do it very frequently. Just like you don't deploy code very frequently. There's a lot of stuff that you don't do. Most of the problems that people run into when they adopt DevOps and adopt this more rapid agile delivery systems, they're just running into problems they were eventually going to run into anyway. Just get comfortable with that. You know what I'm saying? Just understand that these things are going to come up and you're going to have to deal with them at some point in time. And I think one of the most important things when you look at continual improvement is making sure that you are improving precisely where the constraint is. It is so easy for us to look at that low-hanging fruit and the things that are specifically better for us, okay, and not necessarily, as I said in the previous statement, improving things in a silo. Right? You need to do the value stream mapping, work with different people in your organization, ask the question of, okay, we're adopting containers. What happens from the point that we create an application as a container and we're moving it into production and supporting it, or potentially moving it into a public cloud or a public provider? Walk through those processes. You'll find that there's gaps in your knowledge, things that you don't understand, things that you haven't dealt with before, how you're going to secure it, what's it look like at Windows versus Linux, right? These things are going to happen, so go into them and find out, all right, this is what the process is, where are we falling short? In my previous life, I was a system engineer, did the virtualization environment, and I redid everything. Everything was going great and smooth. Go to talk to one of the developers at lunch, and he's like, yeah, it's great. Everything's online and available. It doesn't help me at all. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I still have to, do OS patch updates every week to whatever our new standard is. What do you mean? He goes, well, it takes so damn long to get a new virtual machine. We just keep the same virtual machines, and we just patch them every week, and everybody has their own standard patching. So everybody's got their own environments. Lightheaded, like it was painful. But they never thought to ask me if anything could be better. I said, well, what if you did one patch and it was an image and I made it easy for you to deploy that virtual machine ad hoc whenever you needed to? Right? It may take 40 minutes for it to deploy out and be online, but would that be great? He bought my lunch. I hadn't even done anything yet, but I just understood. And I could sympathize, and I could see where the problem was. I implemented that within like 2 weeks, and they could log into Virtual Center Server and deploy from a single template that they were responsible for keeping patched. Well, I was able to cut out some servers, sped up their development time. They weren't spending 6 hours a week on patching their environment, right? Just one little conversation. That was the constraint that they had. All right, so going forward, when you leave here today, if you want to adopt a mindset of continual improvement, right, understand your processes and then focus on the tools and the technology and the things that you can do to improve those processes. Talk to your counterparts about their priorities. Don't assume that whatever your priority is based on what you're measured on is really what's best for you to focus on. Make sure it's in the queue of priorities and they understand what your priorities are as well. Work as a team to do that. Don't get distracted by every bright and shiny object. There's so many tools and technologies out there. Like, you're not going to learn about every one of them. You're not going to have time to spend time on that. That's actually a constraint you're going to have to work out, right? Spend calories where the development app teams point out pain. Again, it's easy to worry about yourself, but what's driving business value is usually with the application development teams and your application teams, right? Your value is in enabling them. Remember, developers are productive, the business is productive, IT is more productive. And then make sure when you seek improvements, you do it in small increments, right? I want to improve this deployment process by 10% because this is a constraint. I want to improve our security posture implementation by 5% because this is the outcome. There's no shortcuts. You try to take shortcuts, bad things happen. This actually is in North Carolina, if you're not familiar. It's not far from here. People run into this bridge constantly. There's a webcam. You can watch it. It's phenomenal. I should have put the link in, right? And I just finished a book recently called The Last Lecture, and I love this, right? I always believe that if you took 1/10 of the energy you put into complaining and applied it to the problem, you'd be surprised by how things can work out, right? So it's an incremental improvement in and of itself, right? Instead of bemoaning something that you're being asked of, take a few minutes, think about the problem and how you might be able to address it. And with that, I thank you very much for your time. Any questions?
I got one for you.
Okay.
Why so much focus on mindset? I mean, why is this a relevant topic now when, come on, isn't it all about the tools?
The tools, just like with trying to catch the mammoth, right? You hand a bunch of people some spears and some bows and arrows and say, here you go, your life is now made better. They'll look at it and like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do with these? But if you say, hey, if you can do this, you can actually get your mammoth in 1/4 of the amount of time with fewer people getting hurt and things like that, and now you can grow your clan and do all this stuff. Like, when you provide that context and help them see the benefits, it's good. But for me, you know, and I've heard this said in a variety of different ways, right? You want to change my behavior, change the way I'm measured, right? And what we have to deal with the shifts in operations, the way we're measured has already changed. Right? It just hasn't trickled down to us all yet, right? Because every time one of our business leaders reads CIO magazine or listen to some podcast that I've been on or some article that Damon's written, they're like, oh, well, this organization over here was able to do it. We should be able to do it too. They've already made up their mind. It's going to be up to all of us to prove that out, whether we do it kicking and screaming or we do it proactively. So the mindset part is going in and saying, oh yeah, no, I'm totally going to nail this. Like, we're going to do it. It's going to take a while. Let's set expectations, right? And everybody in this room needs to understand one really critical, important thing. Today's miracles are tomorrow's expectations. That's why the mindset of continual improvement is to reduce the firefighting, reduce the miracles. So that's why mindset, I think, is absolutely critically important. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just to build on that, I think that operations has been built on such a risk-adverse philosophy for so many years, and
yes.
so many hands have been slapped for trying to do something new, that mindset has been, I'm not going to take that chance because of what the ramifications of it might be. So I think that's where that fundamental mind shift has to change. Yep. We have to reward risk-taking as opposed to, you know, slapping it down and saying, no, yep, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, so there's two things in that I'll share. Number one, you can get this off the recording, or you can write it down or ask me later. There's a book called Beyond Blame by David Zweibeck. It's short, it's phenomenal, and it addresses that like spot on. Give it all to your leaders, Beyond Blame. And the other thing is that in this transition, one of the things that changes is more control is going to context. Right, which means more developers are getting access and self-service. More operations people are getting more budget control or ownership for certain things. And you know, more leaders are putting more of that control to context. And so that mindset also has to change. Like, we can't give up availability and reliability until all the applications are handling that. But at the same time, like, that is moving more towards the applications. So, all right, I think I am out of time. 2 minutes? Okay.
One more question? No?
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.